I've been in the arts my whole life, right? So I've been running my art studio for probably 25 years now. And I actually kept that life sort of separate from my gun industry life. And I've been in the firearms industry for about a little over 11 years now. And I started this idea, which became the gun industry marketplace about 11 years ago. And just, I guess, my profile in the gun industry and the gun industry marketplace and my profile in the arts and my art studio, they just got big enough that it was no longer possible to keep them separate. These days, they're both full-time, actually. So the gun industry marketplace, I would say, is the biggest time hog because it's busy. We have, the website, as I call it, the website business, and it's got its different marketing things attached to it, and that's how it makes money. We do other internet marketing there, so it can be very time-consuming. But the art studio, too, is time-consuming because I'm producing not just original paintings, I'm producing prints of the paintings, I'm producing...
Hey, let's welcome Owen York, artist and owner of a gun industry marketplace. Good to see you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Well, let's talk about your story. You combine two sides of your life, being an artist and the founder of a gun industry marketplace company. How did you become that, and how it is to combine these two different sides of your life?
That's a pretty loaded question. So if I was going to give you the short version, I've been in the arts my whole life, right? So I've been running my art studio for probably 25 years now. And I actually kept that life sort of separate from my gun industry life. And I've been in the firearms industry for about a little over 11 years now. And I started this idea, which became the gun industry marketplace about 11 years ago. And just, I guess, my profile in the gun industry and the gun industry marketplace and my profile in the arts and my art studio, they just got big enough that it was no longer possible to keep them separate. And so it was sometime over COVID, actually, right? In 2020, actually it was in 2019. It was a little before, in the fall of 2019. That's where my careers sort of officially merged. And I guess the reason I kept them separate initially is because the firearms industry is very conservative and the arts can be very liberal. And so I just kind of kept those separate. And at some point you just have to look and you just have to own it. And so that's what I did. I just owned it. And then, and so I just kind of let everything sort of mesh together. So that's been about 5, almost 6 years now.
And which one is your full-time job, or how much time do you dedicate to each of them?
Well, these days, they're both full-time, actually. So the gun industry marketplace, I would say, is the biggest time hog because it's busy. We have, the website, as I call it, the website business, and it's got its different marketing things attached to it, and that's how it makes money. We do other internet marketing there, so it can be very time-consuming. But the art studio, too, is time-consuming because I'm producing not just original paintings, I'm producing prints of the paintings, I'm producing the guns that I'm selling as art out of my art studio. And so it's a lot of moving parts. So I'd say both of them are pretty much full-time gigs at this point,
Yeah. So could you tell me more about the marketplace? What are the challenges that you're solving? And I know we talked about it a little bit offline about this, but what it is, how it looks like, and I'll probably leave the link to your website in the description. So if anyone listens, you can check it out. But in your own words, what it is and how it works.
So I can give you just a bit of history. It started off when I came into the firearms industry. I just brought some high-tech skills, some high-tech sort of marketing and sales skills. And so we actually started off as the media for a short time, and it quickly evolved to where we were actually marketing and selling the products of certain companies. We would represent them and we'd market and sell their stuff, and we'd basically send them a check and tell them where to ship things. And then over Trump's first term, that in the gun industry they call the Trump slump, the first Trump slump anyway, we did some market research and just like on Amazon.com and a lot of other industries, there's the race to the bottom of pricing. And that was happening in the firearms industry at the time. And so there were just the margins on all the products are getting smaller and smaller. And so our market research actually told us to get out of the margins. And so that's where we became officially the gun industry marketplace, kind of as the brand was during Trump's first term. And so what we did that was really ingenuitive and what it is today is really it's a website, it's a platform. And we just created a place for people to go because in the firearms industry, if people aren't familiar with it, they can't market and they can't advertise. It's very censored, it's very suppressed. You can't run an ad on Facebook, you can't run an ad on Instagram, you can't use Google ads. So all these things that all these other companies are quite used to using to promote their products, you can't use. And so we just made this platform and we go, well, here, why don't you use this? Minus a long story, that's what sort of took off, was just giving everybody a place to promote and market. And so now what the gun industry marketplace has evolved to is, it is now, in fact, we're going to be launching the new version within days or this week. There's a live test site up, which we've been using kind of as a proving ground, but the new gun industry marketplace is launching any day. But basically, it's going to be a website of communities, and so you'll still be able to do all the things you could do before, like, promote, you can chat, you can ask questions, you can even, if you want to, there's like familiar social media functions in there. But really, it's meant to be like a community site. So if somebody wants to be like, hey, they can make a group for, 1911 fans or whatever. They can. People can join those groups, and so we've made this sort of communities website, and I think it's going to be really big, because it's not, there's a lot of research behind this and there's a lot of experience behind it. So I think people are going to use it, and it's free. It used to be we'd charge, but it's free. So for people to go on there. So that's what the modern gun industry marketplace is. It's just this platform where you can start groups and get followings, and you can do anything you want. You can communicate, you can promote your products, you can promote your services. So we're kind of creating a place that allows you to do what all these other places don't. So that's kind of what the modern gun industry marketplace is, which again launches basically the final version, which will have some tweaks in it as well, but it's going to launch sometime over the next few days or this week.
Yeah, and probably by the time this podcast is out, it's already available. So if there is a link, which you probably can find in the description, this should be a newer version
Yeah.
if you check it out. So this industry, as you said, is highly regulated,
Mm.
obviously. So is it the marketplace at its core, without talking about the community side of things, is it like a virtual gun show where like everyone can kind of buy and sell their firearms, or uh,
Yeah, it can be. It can be, right? Like, so I mean, it's more like this. We found ourselves very quickly because there's websites like that. There's like Arms List where you can buy and sell used guns. There's Gun Broker, which is like the eBay of the firearms industry. And there's all these other websites. And that's not what this is. I suppose people can do that if they have the right community. Like if someone makes a community, like buy and sell used guns, or gun owners in Birmingham or whatever. I'm telling you, people can make a group for anything they want. So more so where we sort of came up was in the business to business world of firearms. Like, for example, if there's a business and your customers are other firearms industry businesses, where do you go? How do you market to them? How do you advertise to them? And that was our sweet spot. So that's really where we came up. And then I also have a background in a little defense and public safety myself. And so law enforcement and government kind of was pretty natural. So we have a very large presence with business to business and law enforcement particularly, but then others, some government and, also some military. But, and then over the years, of course, our awareness comes up with gun owners, just the consumers of the industry too, right? So that's where we're a little bit different, is we're not the eBay of the world. It's just, we don't sell anything. It's just a place to go and really communicate. So the way I've been sort of describing it to people, just to kind of make it real for them, is it's sort of like if someone were to build like a LinkedIn mixed with Reddit. If you're familiar with Reddit, that's kind of what we built. It's very familiar, but it's kind of like that sort of website where you can kind of network and make your groups and communicate. And I wonder that people maybe are possibly going to start doing business through here because there is a messenger that people can communicate and stay in touch. So I'm actually hoping to replace some of these sort of more commie platforms like LinkedIn or Facebook, or, like they don't want us there. But that's probably the best way to describe it, just to keep it simple. It's sort of a mix between a LinkedIn and a Reddit, except for the gun industry.
and have you ever faced any challenges when it comes to pushing the boundary and laws around the gun? Because as you said on Facebook, you can't simply promote a firearm, right? So
Right.
there are probably some laws in place that not allow you to do certain things when it comes to buying and selling firearms and promoting them. So how has it been for you to navigate that legal landscape while providing value to your customers?
Well, that's what's kind of nice, is we don't sell anything, right? Like the way we keep our lights on and the way we make money is that, like, we sell internet marketing services. You know what I mean? So we help people promote, and that's how we make our money. But the platform itself and the promotion, like remember, we really are just doing advertising and marketing. We don't sell anything, right? And so we don't have any restrictions. We don't have any regulations. We don't have to be, we don't have to have our FFL. We can, I mean, we can say whatever we want. So it makes it pretty nice. I mean, since we don't walk that line anymore, we used to sell, but since we don't walk that line, we could pretty much say whatever we want to whoever we want, and there's no restrictions. We have our First Amendment right to say whatever the hell we please, and so we do. I mean, at one point, I remember after the bump stocks were banned, the bump stocks were in the gun industry marketplace, years and years ago before COVID. But I remember they were in there, and I kept talking to the company like, "Hey, should we pull these?" And he was like, "Do you think we should pull them?" And I said, "I don't really care. I mean, it's a picture on the internet with some content. We're not selling anything. You know what I mean? It's nothing. We're not doing anything illegal." So we just kept it there for like a year or a year and a half after the ban occurred. So it's kind of nice. I don't really, in 11 plus years, I haven't really run into anything restrictive. I will say the only thing we've run into that was restrictive is the big tech companies, which is what everybody's very familiar with. If you work in the industry, you run into these barriers. So we've run into that and we've had to solve those problems, which again is what we try to provide to everybody else is we figured it out and we try to give them the platform so that they don't have to figure out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And you told me that for you, firearms are art as well. So, what makes a firearm, a gun, an art? How do you express yourself through custom built firearms? Or if you have anything around that you can show, that'd be great. But why is it art for you and what makes it art?
So basically, I mean, to start, I guess, to get into the guns, like, so I've been an artist my whole life, obviously, right? And I always thought I'd actually make a good engineer. I think engineers and artists and other types use the same creative capacity because you definitely have to be creative and problem solving and certain things like that. So I always thought I'd make a good engineer, and so I guess, guns are so ingenuitive, they're pretty much works of art themselves in terms of an engineering marvel. And there's guns out there that really are works of art. I mean, there's $200,000 shotguns. There's, pistols that sell for $500,000 or $1 million. I mean, so they are actually in their own right, collectibles and art pieces. And there's a lot of artistic firearms out there, which people have probably seen. And so for me, this is kind of another way that after my two careers sort of merged, like I had the arts career and I had the firearms industry career. I'll tell you exactly when it was during the COVID shutdowns in 2020. Like we were in week 3, the whole world had shut down. Everyone's kind of freaking out, wondering what they're doing, what's going on. And I had this idea. And so I just called this guy who I knew in the firearms industry. And I said, listen, I'm going to make this gun, but I'm going to make it as a piece of art out of my art studio. And I said, you want to partner with me on this? And he was like, hell yeah. And so that's what started the whole guns as art thing. Now, it was a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. It's quite an endeavor, especially over COVID. Like the materials were scarce. I mean, everybody was busy. It was just insane during COVID. So it actually took me about 3.5 years to get the first one to market, which now we have. But it's been really cool because a lot of people, like a lot of the companies that I work with on these, I usually have partners that I work with on each of these. It takes them a second. They're like, wait a minute. So you're an artist and you're making guns as art? And I'm like, right. And they're like, they're paintings, right? And I'm like, no, they're guns. Like a model of a gun? I'm like, no, these are real guns. They're functional, real, actual guns. Like they're meant to be used. And so it's different, and I find that even the manufacturing partners I work with, they just want to be a part of it because it's different. So it's been a kind of another kind of another cool creative outlet. I got my art, obviously. But these, I have to do something like a little different, like a little different or a little new because there is artistic stuff out there and I can't just have like, oh, here's my painted pistol. Like I have to do something like extra special. Anyway, so it's kind of become a thing. It's stuck. So yeah.
And do you make more money selling art or from the marketplace?
Well, it's kind of mixed. The gun industry marketplace is 11 years old. So it produces good income. We're a great brand name, but art makes money too. I mean, people who buy original art, it's an investment. There's collectors, same with the high-end guns, like the exact market is sort of like this luxury guns market. So it depends, I guess it depends. Like I could say maybe in the summer the arts can be better because in the firearms industry it's a little slower, but we're in the business world of the gun business a lot. So I don't know. I could say it's probably about even, give or take.
And how, I think we also talked about this offline a little bit, that art is also a business, and you need
Mm.
to figure out how to market your product, how to sell it. How do, putting, the whole firearm thing aside, generally as an artist, how can I build a successful business selling my unique art, because you have so many people creating things and only a few of them succeed. How can I build a successful business being an artist?
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, it's a business. So, I mean, if you don't treat it like a business, you're going to be broke. Like, if someone's a starving artist, they're going to be a starving artist. But if they get in their head from the beginning that they are starting a business and it's a business, then that's going to be like what they're going to get. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, as an artist, like anybody who's starting as an artist, whatever kind of art, doesn't matter, musician, painter, it doesn't matter. They do need to realize that they are starting a business. If they think it's just like, oh, I'm going to make this song or this whatever, that's great. You should definitely have your creative side of it too, but it is a business. Unless it's a hobby, like it does need to produce income at some point, right? Otherwise you're broke and you are a starving artist. But if you get the mindset in the beginning to treat it like a business, then it's a business. And if it's not making any money, you treat it like a business. It's not making any money, and you'll be, if you need to eat, you're going to figure out how to make money. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have dinner, you might sell something that day so that you can buy dinner. But that's kind of the short answer. I think mentally, a lot of people think that it's, someone's going to discover them and whatever. And it's really, maybe that happens, but it's really not the truth. You need to learn how to be a businessman. You need to learn how to market. You need to learn how to advertise and promote so that you can get sales, selling whatever it is that you sell, even if it's yourself as a service, like an actor, you know? And if you, to the degree you do that, to the degree you'll make more money, blah blah blah. But it is a business. Like these people who are all big in their industries, I mean, make no mistake, they have staff, they have an organization, they have support, they have employees, they outsource different services. Like they're a business, you know so I think that's something that anybody who was looking to do art as a business should keep in mind, is that, which is a huge mistake that a lot of people make.
Yeah, that's great advice. Appreciate you sharing this. And I want to touch this topic as well. What's your relationship with AI and art? And do you use AI at all for your artistic purposes or for your business? And how do you think it's gonna change the industry?
Well, AI is crazy right now. It's changing so fast and advancing so fast. It's almost like the smartphones. One day they weren't there and then they were everywhere. And it's the same with AI. Everybody's kind of leaning into it. I think the first thing I'll say is anybody who's not, in their business, looking at their business to make sure that it, first of all, AI proof. You don't want to get replaced, but also, kind of we're embracing it. We're sort of embracing it and looking how it can sort of supplement what we're doing. But luckily, if you look at my two companies, the gun industry marketplace, it's a site of people. It's people, those businesses, the law enforcement, the consumer, they're not going to get replaced by AI. So I feel pretty cozy with gun industry marketplace. And with my art studio, I'm old school. I paint. You know what I mean? And I think that isn't going to get replaced by AI. People are still going to buy art that they like. They're going to buy art as a hedge against the crappy American dollar and inflation and all that, so it's an investment. So I don't see AI replacing that. I know a lot of people went into, what were those NFTs for a while. I think that's still occurring, but I think the main fad of it sort of passed. Oh, and I think people are back to physical currencies again. So anyway, so yeah, I'm definitely into AI. I have to be, especially at the gun industry marketplace where we're doing internet marketing, internet advertising. We got to stay on top of it. But after I've learned what I've learned so far, I'm not really worried. I've sort of more embraced it for certain things and not for other things. I feel pretty cozy.
And we're running out of time, but I do want to let you share, if you have anything, some advice for young people, maybe, just out of high school or early 20s. What would you want to tell them?
For what exactly? Like career wise?
I mean, career wise and in terms of life and, the changing world, you have AI, you have political turmoil and everything. What advice would you want to tell them in those aspects?
I mean, look, I think anybody who's hungry is going to figure out what they want to do. When I was young, I was hungry and I just went out and did it. I'm not a huge champion, as you can imagine, of college. Trade schools I think are different. Like, for example, I went to art school. That's a trade school. You go to learn something specific. I think that can be a little different. I'm not a big fan of universities. I think if somebody's going to do it, they're going to do it. You know what I mean? So either make up your mind, do it or don't. And if you're gonna do it, I'm sort of the type to just jump in the fire. That would be my advice to anybody. Like, whatever you're gonna do. Like, going into the gun industry is one example. Like, people think, oh, it's gonna be easy. I like guns. I'm gonna start a gun industry business, and then they get in and they find out, wow, this is actually pretty tough. Like, go talk to any gun industry veteran. It's an interesting industry. But the same goes for the arts. If you're going to be a painter or a musician or an actor or whatever artistic endeavor, again, it's the same thing. Like, someone's either going to do it or they're not. And if they haven't really mentally committed to, like, I'm going to do this, at some point they'll quit. It might be a year, it might be 5 years, but they're going to quit. Here I am in my 40s, you know what I mean? And I'm going to quit doing, like, I always had that in my mind. I was never going to quit doing art. I'm an artist. It's what I am. So what, I'm going to quit? I'm going to quit being myself. You know what I mean? So I've just sort of always persisted in that through until it did get successful. And again, and the more I ran it as a business and the more I looked and the more I listened and the more I learned, the more successful it got. Like, the art and guns together, I won't say it was a fluke because it was intentional, but that's just a good example of, I was paying attention, I was looking, and there was an opportunity and it sort of took off and I rode the wave, and now it's like a thing and people love it, but who knew? If you would have asked me 8 years ago if this was what I was going to be doing, making guns out of my art studio, it wasn't even in my mind. It was there. I saw it. And, like I said, I sort of owned it and then rode the wave. So that's probably the best advice I could give, is to just really mentally commit. If you're going to do it, do it. And if you're not, don't. Do something else that you like to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And how can people purchase your artwork? Those paintings and everything. Do you have a dedicated website for that?
I do. So, like, there's a couple of places. I have my art website, which is just owenyork.com. So there's a web store in there. You can buy originals, you can buy prints. The guns you have to buy through a licensed, firearms dealer. And so that my dealer for those currently is Deluxe Arms, and it's just deluxearms.com. They're a luxury firearms dealer out of Texas. They're a great company. I've been working with them for quite some time now. And so if you're interested in the guns, you need to go there. You can also contact my studio for that as well. And I take care of anybody, get them where they need to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming to the show and sharing your story and advice. Good luck with your business. And yeah, I appreciate your perspectives and stories today.
Good. Hey, well, thanks for having me on.